When we landed here from Indiana, we had came down. My dad got a contract to build 2 scissor roebuck stores.
Oh, wow.
And he had his own business up in Indianapolis. And we came down, we came to Texas, and we landed in right out of Dallas. It was called Riley, Texas. And that's when I started my first grade. But that's the time that the Depression hit us. And we were very hard. And this is what I would like to say, because I think it's important. The farmers began to notice as children were wearing the same clothes, because we had a Model T Ford, and there were 10 of us in the Model T Ford, 8 children and my mother and dad. And so we were jammed all around. One of them slept up in that window, back window. So my mother didn't pack too much clothes. Well, anyway, we ended up in the country in Raleigh, and that's where I went to school. But I want to mention that the farmers passed the word around to 3 different farmers of our condition. And we were eating dandelion leaves, dandelion seeds, frogs from our mud hole in our backyard. And terrible, he would get these fish, I don't know what that kind of were, and we had to eat the fish. But the mother told us, always remember this: the Texas farmers saved our lives. They came and fed us. They brought their old clothing from our mother to make dresses for us out of, and to this day, I'm always proud to mention that I'm very proud of the Texas farmers. To me, that is very important, because all our life, when us children reminisce about things, we say, oh, do you remember? And that was important. Well, we started school in Raleigh at the first grade. I was in the first grade only, I think about 6 months or 8 months there when I got a disease, and I do not remember the name of it, but I was sick for a long time. So finally I got to go back to school. I was 6 years old. I got to go back to school, and I came home and I was crying, and mother couldn't understand, because I was so anxious to get back. But I don't know anything, mother. I don't know anything that they're doing, because I was off of school so long that the principal said, maybe let her stay home. It was only a short time for this summer to come and start all over next year, because she'll never catch up. So it was a good thing, because my little sister was 1 year and 2 weeks younger than me. So we were 2 tiny little girls together. She started school the same year I did the next year. And we were in the same grade from first grade clear to graduating from high school. Same teacher, same grade, every school kept us together. And they all insisted we were twins, but we didn't want them to know about it, because our thinking has been the same way all of our lives. When I bought a new dress for a reunion for my mother, I was in Wisconsin when I was married. She was in Texas, same dress, same colors. When I was in high school and she was in there with me, I didn't tell her. When I would babysit, I went down and bought a dress, put it in a layaway. I didn't tell her, and she didn't tell me. My boyfriend took me to the fairgrounds, and then all he said to me was, do you have a twin sister? And here came my sister with her date, same dress, same one as I had, same color, and this has been clear up all through our married life. I came to Texas. I went to Clifford, Texas, and picked out a lot of what we were going to buy, the senior center. And so we had my mother. She loved to travel with us. We went over to my sister's, and my mother said, well, Alice, your sister may be coming down to Texas to live here with you now. And she was so excited. Where? We said, Clifford, Texas. She said, really? And she said, well, we went there to look at a lot too. And I says, well, we looked at a lot. She said, don't tell me, don't tell me. She brought out her papers. 72. We both were buying the same lot. We picked the same lot. And this is way up in our married life. Well, I'll get back down to a little school days that, I mean, now this has happened. She's in assistant home living, and I'm in assistant home living. And my sister, that's just 2.5 years older than me, she's in Washington, the state of Washington, in an assistant home. I'm here in Texas. And my sister that lived in Texas, her daughter lives in Colorado. She was coming to me here at the home with me, but her daughter came down and got her and took her up to Colorado. But we would have been spending our last days in the same home together, but her daughter took her up to Colorado. Of course, we call each other back and forth because we do miss each other so much. We used to walk down the sidewalks, and when we were studying something to be of history or that, we walked down the sidewalks and we'd skip and sing, some passed no bills, passed but Congress, and we'd sing it as we was walking along and skipping along, because we knew this was a question that they were going to ask us on our test. She would help me, and I would help her, and our life was close as one, as so close. And then when we used to run, well, I used to think I was chubby in schools because she had rickets and she was very thin, but I couldn't see her being thin. And I used to always feel, and when I look at my pictures in our photograph books after years ago, I would look at them and I think, oh, Betty, you weren't fat. But I would never say the words, Alice was thin. I never would use those words towards her. And when I was real little and couldn't talk real good, I used to call her Allie doll for Alice doll, because my mother said, oh, I caved all over her, that I just worshipped at her as a baby. And I guess that just was in our blood, that I said Mother had me early and Alice late. Now that's my young childhood days. Well, then when we got further up in grade, then we moved right into Dallas. And then we went to Pleasant Grove High School. And that still is going on, because I got a letter in the mail this last week for a reunion. They always have a high school reunion. And oh, I'd love to go so much, but I have my knee, I cannot fly. So there's no way I could get to that reunion. But I know I'd probably be one of the oldest ones there at the reunion, because I'm 93, and I know that a lot of people that age are not able to travel either, to go. But I was married in 1944. Well, I had one boyfriend, and he was a boyfriend, and I had met him when I was a leader at a tuberculosis camp for children that had TB. Well, an aunt had lived with us, and she died of TB, but she was with us in our house and had a baby. Her and my aunt and my little niece, they died, both of them, of TB in our house when we lived in Indiana. And they always, when they give you a shot in the arm, it showed TB. So all through my young days, we had to go to TB camps every summer. Well, when I was 16, you go till you're 14 years old. When I was 16, they called my mother, could I come and be a counselor for the boys? Because I had younger brothers too. And I was so good in taking care of them. I was a tomboy. And so I went out as a counselor. Well, they had the Boy Scouts, they let them come out to our campsite to have entertainment with us, and by the waterfront we'd sit there and sing songs and that. And this one's name, his name was Al Johnson, and we just become a friend. And every time they'd come, we'd come and we would be friends. And when I say the word friend, never once did I ever get a kiss from him. He'd hold my hand when we'd walk somewhere, but we were friends. He kept contact with me after we were married and would write us. So that's why I said, well, as he got up and he was in the service, I got a couple of letters from him, and then I never got any more mail from him. And I never heard anything from his family or anything. And I said my prayers that maybe he was called up Now, then the only other one I had was one other boy that I went with when he was more like a friend too, but he was a little closer. I could tell he was wanting me to ask me about my family and tell me about his family, and I just felt I wasn't interested in that, so I kept my dates with him, not very much, because I wasn't one for dating much. So when my older sister got married, well, she had 2 little children and she had a new baby, but he was having trouble, medical trouble, and she asked me if I'd come over to take care of the 2 other little kids she had. This is while no school's going, and so I did. And now I was only 18 years old at the time, because I was just graduating from school. And so then finally, after being there, it was a good month, I told her I'm going to go home. I don't know if I've told you this before. Okay. I wanted to go back and see my mother. And when I got back there, here she had 8 servicemen in the house. Well, did I tell you?
Did she go, you need to take a walk with this one?
All right, well, okay. They all came there because she gave a free meal. And then I went right straight to the kitchen to help my mother work. And then he would say to me, oh, tell me about when you this or that. And I said, well, what did you know about that? Oh, your mother told me. And here I found out my mother had given the whole history about me. Well, anyway, we went to the dad walking, and he put his arm around my back, and boy, I pushed it off. He said, well, what's the matter? I said, my mother told me never let a man put their hands where it doesn't belong. He accepted that, but he held my hand. So when I got home, he told my mother about it, and she said, Betty. She said, my goodness. And I said, well, Mother, you told me. I didn't know. I did not know any difference in that, you know. But anyway, as it turned out, we went together, and he went home to see his old friends, and he came back, and we were married, and we were married 50 years, and we had 3 daughters and 1 son. And I still keep in contact with a couple of my ones that I went to high school. Doris Lee was her name, Leela Hargis, Ina Lee. There were 3 of us Lees, Betty Lee, Doris Lee, and Ina Lee. And there were 3 Bettys, Betty Jean, Betty Jane, and Betty Lee in school. And that's, I thought that was quite queer. Each of us be all named Bettys, but we found out there was a lot of more Bettys that year. It was a popular name of that year. So, but one little thing I didn't tell you, my sisters and I found out that one of our school teachers that we just loved in Riley was now teaching in Mount Auburn, in Texas, you know, right here. And we asked our mother permission if we could go to that school one time and go to see her. Well, she said, if you walk, because depression was bad, and so we took off our shoes and socks, and we walked over there. Before we got there, we put our shoes and socks back on again. And then we got in, the minute we opened the door, Miss Gibson says, oh no, it can't be the Loftus sisters. She remembered us 3 sisters that she had in school. And you know, we were so happy that she remembered us because we thought so much of her being a sister. I wrote that down in my diary of the meeting with them in school. Those schools in Riley were my happiest days in the country. Those were my happiest days, sitting on the Ferris wheel, trying to go on the climb. Told you I was a tomboy. I didn't want my dress to fly up because the boys would see us, so I used to tuck it in under the things there. So the deer.
Yeah.
So I could go flying on some of the rounds so that dress wouldn't fly up on me. But my parents were very, very good with us in raising us, instructing us. Little did they realize that they needed to go a little deeper to kind of tell us about the future. And quickly, once one incident happened, then she was right on her toes with us, and she was an angel. My mother was. We know she was. We know the Lord sent her down from heaven to raise us and take care of us. And I wrote her a long poem about her in that incident. And one minister published it, put it in his bulletin at church. And I got a lot of comments on it. But that's my life. I hope I didn't take too long.